Is it time for me, a historical geek now, to replay one of my favorite childhood games, tell you its story, review it with this new perspective and have a look at some historical aspects featured in it?
It's time.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me present you this masterpiece of a game called Spartan Total Warrior. It was created by the same studio that's responsible for yet another nostalgia-heavy title, Rome Total War. Although from what I heard, these games were developed by two different teams. Regardless, both had a great influence on the personality shaping of many 90s kids, me included. Actually, to a great degree, it's thanks to Spartan Total Warrior that today I am a fairly muscular dude. For real, little me when looking at the box of this game promised to himself that one day he's going to look like a guy from the cover. So, if anybody ever tells me that exaggerated body physique of game characters is something bad, I am going to laugh straight into their face, as for me this phenomenon had a radically opposing and positive influence from that which is claimed by many people. But that's enough nostalgic / anti-woke rambling for now. Let me show you what a great piece of entertainment Spartan Total Warrior was, or still is, if you only can get your hands on a PlayStation 2, Xbox from the year 2001, or a Nintendo GameCube. All those who can't do that are invited to watch a full unenhanced gameplay that I recorded on a PlayStation 2, which was uploaded together with this video. Now on to the totally unbiased review and story overview. In Spartan Total Warrior, you get to play as a Spartan warrior. I know, what a shocker, right? Our protagonist is nameless, but instead of wasting any time on explaining his backstory, with a call from Ares, the god of war, we are transported straight onto a battlefield. There, without any hesitation, the game gives the player his purpose for another 15 hours or so. That purpose being to slay as many Romans as humanly possible. Sorry, that is an understatement. After all, the game is set in a fantasy world full of magic and mythology that has very little to do with actual history. The game, with its 14 levels, takes you to 6 different locations. On your journey you get to battle 3 mythological creatures and meet 9 characters, loosely based on their historical or mythological counterparts. All your efforts are fueled by a single goal: to destroy the evil Roman Empire. Before I dive into telling you more about this game's every act, I feel the need to tell you why I find Spartan Total Warrior to be so fantastic. Before I got to play as the Spartan, I've spent a significant amount of time in Rome Total War, every time being absolutely blown away by this game's grand battles. Countless times I've zoomed into where fighting was the fiercest and imagined myself to be controlling one of the soldiers, silently hoping for a game where I could do just that. I bet most of you did the same. With this, you can only imagine how excited little me was when I saw Spartan Total Warrior on a shelf in my local video game store. After spending no less than an hour convincing my mom to get me the game, I jumped right into the first battle and was given more than what I hoped for. It's because Spartan Total Warrior does not only keep the grandeur of battles seen in Rome Total War, but on top of that gives a player elements of superhuman strength and godly special magical attacks. The game's story structure is inspired by classical Greek plays and thus is almost perfectly divided into 5 acts with 3 scenes per act. In the game's case, these are missions. Our journey begins in 300 BCE Sparta, which is under siege by the Roman army led by General Crassus. You, together with your buddies Castor and Pollux, are ordered by King Leonidas to repel the Roman invasion. Ha! All you history fans are probably cringing after listening to these sentences. But be patient, the justice on the historical platform will be served later in this video. Back to the game. First mission ends with the destruction of a giant Talos. In the second mission, Under the influence of Ares, who presents himself as your ally, you infiltrate the Roman camp. Although being a little slower than the first mission, this one is special because here you get to acquire your first magical weapon, the Blades of Athena, which give you the power to cast thunder upon your enemies. In the Roman camp you also get to meet Electra, an Amazon princess who is seeking vengeance on the Romans for invading Greece.
I am Electra, princess of the Amazon.
The first act ends with a renewed Roman effort to take the city of Sparta. This time the conquerors get to use a new device powered by Medusa, which can turn people into stone. Once again, you get to slaughter your way through countless Romans in order to fight Crassus at the end and claim his weapon as yours. This being the Shield of Medusa, which now gives you the power to turn people into stone. Probably the most useful and satisfying power out of all that the game has to offer. The second act finally takes us to a different location. Geographically, these would be the Balkans, probably rightfully called the Badlands in the game. You go there again because of Ares. He tells you to find Troy in order to acquire the Spear of Achilles, and the Badlands are just on the way. There you get ambushed by barbarians, who in my opinion are the coolest enemies in Spartan Total Warrior. All of them are wielding two-handed weapons. The lightest troops have something that looks like an enlarged version of this African lion-killing club I have. Then there are heavier troops with swords and axes, all supported by axe-throwing ranged units. Wait, are these Wolverine claws? Wow, these barbarians get better with every unit. To close the deal, we have the so-called Gigantes, overgrown men who can toss you like a bag of potatoes. I have to give credit to Creative Assembly for not making the barbarians look like Vikings. Although the developers were unable to stop themselves from calling the barbarian leader after a Norse mythological hero Beowulf.
And hundred slayer. Your warriors cannot stand against me.
This act ends with a boss fight where you defeat Beowulf and claim his weapon, a mighty warhammer called Deathbiter, which instead of biting, actually with its magical power throws your enemies in the air as if they were made of cardboard. Now, in Act 3, being called by the game a hero, we finally reach Troy in search for the Spear of Achilles. During the search, we get to meet our new main antagonist, Aelius Sejanus, prefect of the Praetorian Guard, who brings his soldiers together with him to Troy. Praetorian Guard features some of the most annoying enemies we face in the whole game. Other than a buffed up version of the legionaries, there are also dual-wielding assassins who are pretty hard to hit. There are also the so-called Carnifex units, which from Latin translate to butchers. They are equipped with large double-handed curved swords and are so powerful that they can even block direct power attacks. If that wasn't enough, Sejanus turns out to be a necromancer. So we also get to deal with undead Roman soldiers. Still not enough? Yeah, here are some more undead, but this time it will be the skeleton warriors from the time of the Trojan War. The third act is an in-and-out type of scenario. Already in the first mission we acquire the Spear of Achilles, after defeating our clone that was created by Sejanus. Sadly, this weapon is the last we get, and with that, also the weakest of the bunch. At least that's my opinion. All it does is fire up the Spartan so that everyone he touches starts burning. The second mission is a filler level, during which we are looking for a way out of Troy. Once out, the third mission comes and it's simply a boss fight. But what a fight it is! After all, the enemy is none other than the Hydra. This act ends with dire news of the fall of Sparta. With no Spartan to defend his city, it easily fell to the might of Rome. This gives us an obvious goal for the rest of the game. Free Greece from Roman oppression and strike at the heart of the evil empire, Rome and its leader, Emperor Tiberius. Act 4 is for me the lowlight of the game. In it, our Spartan is transported to Athens, where we hope to spring up a rebellion with help of Archimedes. All 3 missions are fairly slow when compared to the rest of the game. Instead of pure hack-and-slash brutal fun, we get to run errands, complete an extremely frustrating escort mission, run around the city to save other Greeks, and deal with an unhealthy amount of those annoying Praetorian assassins. On top of that, we are introduced to yet another Praetorian unit, which exceeds in it being frustrating. A flamethrower unit. Yes, you heard me right. Flamethrower. These guys, when they lose all of their HP, do not simply die, but start burning, run straight at you and explode, taking away most of your health. At least, at the end of that all, we get to shoot a laser cannon at an undead skeleton dragon, and once and for all deal with Sejanus. Thankfully, the game gets back on its tracks with Act 5, where we get to complete our eventual quest. In the first mission, we have to punch our way through a Roman fortress in the Alps called the Gate of Saturn. Again, we get to decimate whole Roman centuries and have a confrontation with Sejanus. Wait, I thought we were done with this dude. Oh yeah, remember? He is a necromancer, so it's his zombie version that we get to fight now. Once we complete the destruction of the Roman Alpine frontier, we are transported into the Roman underground sewer and aqueduct system. There, the Spartan is meant to sneak into the city in order to eliminate Tiberius. On our way, we get to fight yet another enemy type, gladiators. This mission ends with one more boss fight, our enemy being the last mythological creature we face in the game, a Minotaur. With the sewers cleared, we finally get to Rome. And what is the best place in Rome to bring our story to a climatic end?
The Colosseum.
Hacking our way through even more Romans and gladiators in and around the amphitheater, the Spartan finally reaches Tiberius, only to see his pitiful fall towards his own demise. But to be honest, by this point every sane person playing the game would rather know what's coming next. The great plot twist. It was Ares all along who was behind this whole turmoil with Rome invading Greece, sending the Spartan to Troy and eventually leading him to Rome so that they could have their epic last fight on the blood-soaked soil of the Colosseum. This last fight is hard. Playing on medium difficulty and not being the greatest gamer out there, during the fight I had some serious Dark Souls frustration level moments. What a great way to end this epic journey. Give the player PTSD. Hey, but that's also what's cool about old games. They are not plain and simple. Okay, we are done with the story. It's time for... Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking to criticize a fantasy game for not being historically accurate. However, with so much absurdity, I at least feel I need to comment on what we see in the game and how wrong it feels for someone with decent historical awareness. It seems like the writers team behind Spartan Total Warrior had a brainstorming session where they just randomly shouted out first things that come to mind when thinking of the ancient world, with absolutely no regard to any historical correctness. It must have been something like this. Sparta? Ooh, King Leonidas. Greece? Ooh, Archimedes, Castor and Pollux. Rome? Ooh, Colosseum, Praetorians, the Empire. Great job, guys. Let's now throw it all into the pot, spice it up with Greek mythology and see what comes out. I'd like to just remind you that in the game we have the year 300 BCE. Historically, at that time, Sparta was weak. Greece was overrun by a different empire, that of the Macedonians, or rather one of the Diadochi kingdoms. Rome was still only a regional power, with the Punic Wars somewhere there over a far horizon. The Praetorian Guard would not have been formed for another over 300 years. The Colosseum would not have been built for another almost 400 years. When it comes to historical figures, King Leonidas in the year 300 BCE would be at a finish of his 2nd century in his grave. Emperor Tiberius and Sejanus were not even dangling between their father's legs, far from it. Crassus, at least the most famous Crassus, was a terrible military leader who died in the first battle that he ever fought. It would be more fitting to call this character Pompey if we have to go with one of the triumvirs, but I guess his name does not sound scary enough. Archimedes? Well, this guy historically is the closest to being alive around the year 300 BCE. However, he probably has never even seen Athens. The guy was from Syracuse, Sicily, and when he traveled around the Greek world, it was to Alexandria in Egypt. Phew, I am sorry, I just had to get it off of my chest. And again, I do not think that this mishmash of mythology and a few centuries of history takes away any joy from a common gamer, but it surely also does not enrich the experience to any degree. Maybe that's also the reason why Creative Assembly never produced any other Total Warrior game, while at the same time the God of War series achieved an outstanding success. Gee, I almost would have forgotten the music. This is also something that deserves a concrete mention. Jeff Van Dyke is the man responsible for Spartan Total Warrior's soundtrack, the same guy who composed music for Rome Total War, so we get an on-spot ancient character in the notes. However, because here we are dealing with a hack-and-slash game set in a fantasy world, these ancient vibes are enriched with some well-placed electronic music elements. This makes the soundtrack an absolute blast, which causes a serious blood rush. It's perfect for the battlefield, but also a gym. When training now with this OST in my headphones, I am getting a pump and motivation that I lacked for months, if not years. You have to give it a try. In conclusion, although my opinion is extremely biased, I think most of you would find Spartan Total Warrior to be a lot of fun. Little me would probably give the game a 10 out of 10 score. Now I need to drop it to 8.5 out of 10. All because of the Athens part and the historical chaos that made me cringe a few times while replaying the game. I would like to know what you guys think. Let me know if you have played the game and what is your opinion of it. I love reading your takes on the things we discuss in our videos, so the comment section is all yours. And although it feels weird to say it after slaying so many Romans, subscribe for the glory of Rome, and remember, Carthago delenda est, et Roma caput mundi.